I'm just noticing, as usual, all the men are over there and the ladies are over there, and you kind of speak to the void in the middle. But I suppose it's kind of the way it is, isn't it? Yeah, there you go. Hare Krishna. It's so nice to see everyone again. It's been a little while. Funny times. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. 30 is up there, yeah? 30. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavala Girivardhari Jai Gopi Janavala Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavala Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Dance, Paribrajaka Charshan, Hastotarasati Srimad is the wine grace. Abai Charanarvinda Bhaktavedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. He. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, chapter 28, text number 30. Yach Sriniketam Alibhi Parishevyamananam Bhutya Swaya Kutila Kuntala Vrinda Justam Mina Dvayasrayam Adhikshipad Abja Netram Jayen Manomayam Atandrita Ulasad Bru Yajstri Niketam Alibi Parishevyamanam Bhutya Svaya Kutila Kuntala Vrinda Justam Mina Dvayasrayam Adhikshipad Abjanetram Jayena Manomayam Atandrita Ulasadbru Yajstri Niketam Alibhi Parishevyamanam Bhutya Svaya Kutila Kuntala Vrinda Justam Mina Dvayasarayam Adhikshipad Abjanetram Jayena Manomayam Atandrita Ulasadbru ladies, please. Yad, which face of the Lord? Sriniketam, a lotus. Alipi, by bees. Parishavyamanam, surrounded. Bhutya, by elegance. Swaya, its. Kutila, curly. Kuntala, of hair. Brinda, by a multitude. Justam, adorned. Mina, of fish. Dvaya, a pair. Ashrayam, dwelling. Adhikshipat, putting to shame. Abja, a lotus. Netram, having eyes. Jayet, one should meditate on. Manamayam, formed in the mind. Atandrita, attentive. Ulasat, dancing. Bru, having eyebrows. Srila Prabhupada's translation and purport. The yogi then meditates upon the beautiful face of the Lord, which is adorned with curling hair and decorated by lotus-like eyes and dancing eyebrows. A lotus surrounded by swarming bees and a pair of swimming fish would be put to shame by its elegance. I'll read the translation once more. The yogi then meditates upon the beautiful face of the Lord, which is adorned with curly hair and decorated by lotus-like eyes and dancing eyebrows. A lotus surrounded by swarming bees and a pair of swimming fish would be put to shame by its elegance. Srila Prabhupada's purport. One important statement here is Jayena Manomayam. Manomayam is not imagination. Impersonalists think that the yogi can imagine any form he likes, but, as stated here, the yogi must meditate upon the form of the Lord, which is experienced by devotees. Devotees never imagine a form of the Lord. They are not satisfied by something imaginary. The Lord has different eternal forms. Each devotee likes a particular form and thus engages himself in the service of the Lord by worshipping that form. The Lord's form is depicted in different ways according to scriptures. As already discussed, there are 8 kinds of representations of the original form of the Lord. These representations can be produced by the use of clay, stone, wood, paint, sand, etc., depending upon the resources of the devotee. Manomayam is a carving of the form of the Lord within the mind. This is included as one of the 8 different carvings of the form of the Lord. It is not imagination. Meditation on the actual form of the Lord may be manifested in different manners, But one should not conclude that one has to imagine a form. There are two comparisons in this verse. First, the Lord's face is compared to a lotus, and then his black hair is compared to humming bees swarming around the lotus, and his two eyes are compared to two fish swimming about. I was thinking of the fish, and I was thinking at least goldfish, or some, you can imagine some beautiful, some very beautiful colored fish swimming around. It's not just a big flat floundery, floppy grey thing that we're talking about. Some special fish. A lotus flower on the water is very beautiful when surrounded by humming bees and fish. The Lord's face is self-sufficient and complete. His beauty defies the natural beauty of a lotus. Om Agana Timarandasya Gananjana Salakya Chakshuran Militam Yen Tasmai Sri Grave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. My spiritual master is forcing me to open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge, and for my humble obeisances unto his lotus feet. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 28, text number 30. Srila Prabhupada is in this verse and in so many verses establishing the supremacy of the understanding of the aspect of Bhagavan. Vedanti tattvaviras tattvam yaj ganamadvayam brahmati paramatmati bhagavanati subjite. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth realize this non-dual substance as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. I'll just wait till the doors close. You've got to be quite strong to pull those gates. They're quite, even Kashi Priyas are sometimes quite heavy. Oh, so you have to be careful how you do it. So, the absolute truth is realized very rarely, or it's a very special thing for the living entity to realize the absolute truth. Generally, people are very much absorbed in the things of this world and are not very much interested or attracted to the idea of the absolute truth. They're more attracted to the... Horses used to have something called a nose bag. Put your hand up if you know what a nose bag is. Fabulous. I'm showing my age. A nose bag is when you feed, I don't know where this came from, but it just comes now. When you feed a horse, you put some oats or whatever in this bag, and then you strap it over the head, and then the horse can get it. Yeah, it's got it on, and it's a nose bag. So the conditioned soul is like a horse with a nose bag. Sense gratification is there, and he's able to eat it. And as long as he's eating and getting something, some taste, then he's satisfied. Manushyanam sahasrashu kaschit sutaye. Hardly one person will endeavor because they're captivated by not the swimming fish. As we heard, these beautiful swimming fish, like the eyes of the Lord, who are darting here and there, casting sidelong glances, but captivated by the very meager beauty of this world. Krishna is also stating that we should understand that we should understand, the devotee should understand, because only the devotees can understand this. That all beautiful glories, mighty manifestations, they spring from but a spark of my splendor. Up in Kumu the other night, I was driving through Kumu, and I don't know if you've been there recently, but the bright lights are in Kumu. There never used to be any bright lights in Kumu. It was a little village, but now it's become one of the busiest places, I think. If you're ever traveling in Auckland and you're traveling and you're going around and this, and when you get to coming up the hill and getting to the top of the road, it's like one of the busiest places in Auckland. So the bright lights are there. Especially there's one Indian restaurant, as you go through, there's a little cut-through place. They spent about $1.5 million putting a few rusty lamp posts about 5 years or 10 years back to make it a cool place. So it was about $1.5 million to put these, I don't know if you've seen these, there's lamp posts and they're shaped like that and they hang over this little road where the ANZ Bank is at the corner and there's an Indian restaurant, and the Indian restaurant had some bright lights, those fairy light things, you hang them, it was blue and bright white and to attract. And in a very dark atmosphere, it's very attractive and people are attracted. So that is the nature of the attractions of this world. When we're in darkness, when we're in ignorance, then something very insignificant becomes very attractive and captivating. So that is the position of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul is captivated by Maya's illusions, and he is not at all aware that this human form of life, tapodevyam putrakayena sattvam sudhyatyasmad brahma sokyam tvanantam, this human form of life, Lord Rishabdev says, is not meant simply for sense gratification, which is available to the hogs and the dogs that eat stool, but rather it's meant for another purpose. Jeev jago, wake up, sleeping soul. It is meant for tapasya. It is meant to perform penance and austerities. Why? To attain the divine position of devotional service, which allows us to enter into Brahma Sokyam, to an Antam. An Antam is eternal, that happiness, the nectar for which we're always anxious. I can go to one Indian restaurant, then I'll go to a Chinese restaurant, then I'll go to an Italian restaurant, then I'll go to this fast food place. I'll go searching. Puna punas charvata charvana. Now we go chewing the chewed. We eat this, thinking we can squeeze out more pleasure. But it's very, very limited. It's a limited return. Therefore, we don't end up with the satisfaction, but we end up with the dissatisfaction, the frustration, the disappointment. One famous verse of Bhagavad Gita is that we have to experience a higher taste. Visayavani vartante niraharasya dehina rasava jamrasopyasya param drishva navartate. We have to experience the higher taste. So we introduce prasadam to people. One person, somebody was saying they'd met a lady. Yesterday someone was just saying this. And she'd got university prasad. I think it was my wife. She'd met some new teacher or something. Was it you, Madri? Oh, it was Madri. There you go. Who was it that? Somebody was driving Madri somewhere, and she said, the very best food I'd ever tasted was the Krishna food at the university. She was a student there, or she was teaching? Student? How did she get the prasadam?
She was taking some pictures at the university.
So she she got that, and that was her experience, that she said it was the best food I'd ever tasted. So she got the higher taste, she got the connection. So to get that introduction somehow or other to this higher taste. Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. It's explained in the third chapter, or third canto, 25th chapter. I think it's text number 24. No, tell a lie, 44. I think it's 44. Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. To attain the ultimate perfection of life, the end goal of life. Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. Tivrena means intense. Bhakti Yoga is devotional service. So to attain the ultimate or the final goal of life, then one must, Prabhupada says it's actually in both in the translation and the purport. We have to perform intensive devotional service. Srila Prabhupada would say 24 hours a day to get that higher gain. So often we engage in devotional service and we think, oh, I've been doing this for 5 years now, and 10 years, and 20, and 50, whatever number of years you've been doing it. And I'm not sure if it works. Because I had a taste, then I lost the taste. Then I had a taste, then I lost the taste. Then I had a taste, And Srila Prabhupada in that purports to those verses, that's 25, 43 and 44. He explains if there is a lack of knowledge and renunciation, it is to be understood that one is not performing complete devotional service. And I was listening to Bhakti Maharaj speaking really nicely on this subject matter, and he was explaining nicely how we take shelter of Krishna, and we take shelter of Krishna, and we get a taste, and we think, yes, he's so good. But then after taking shelter of Krishna, we unfortunately take shelter of some other things sometimes. We get a good taste and we get a good experience, but then the mind has its business and it's thinking, well, maybe I could get some shelter over here. I could enjoy this activity or this kind of taste, which is not fully connected possibly to Krishna. So he was explaining that actually that's why we have to engage in the Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. Now, intense devotional service, it's interesting. Sometimes we think it means intense. It's like, oh, intense, and you become a fanatic. It doesn't mean a fanatic to be engaged in intense devotional service. We could certainly say that Srila Prabhupada was engaged in Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. But it's, again, this science, we hear of all the qualities of devotional service. We have to be very grave. Gravity is a great quality. And then we hear you have to be jolly. You're supposed to be jolly if you're a devotee, and grave, and kind, and compassionate, but strong, and determined. And all these wonderful qualities have to be there to be able to perform this service. And Srila Prabhupada would often say, are you convinced? Yeah, we've heard this many times. Devotees say, yes, Srila Prabhupada, we're convinced. So when we're convinced that there's no other shelter, there's nothing available in the material world, then we'll be able to engage like this. So this meditation is the subject of today's verse. It is not an imaginative process. So Prabhupada's going to great length in these purports to explain this is not an imaginary thing, but the form of the Lord is to be meditated upon. And the yogis should follow in the footsteps in text 29, Srila Prabhupada's mentioning, should form in the footsteps of the devotees. He cannot manufacture a form of the Lord. So the importance, again, I'm going to this point of importance for guidance and for proper, guidance from a proper person, and it's very rarely achieved. It's so worthwhile emphasizing this point. Someone showed me a little video clip of Christian mysticism, looking back to there's a certain part of Christianity, in most traditions actually, where there's mysticism, searching deeply and performing tapasya and renunciation to come closer to God and so on. And when I watched this little video, I thought, there's no clarity of the information. It's very speculative, based on some concept. This one was specifically based on a saint who, in the Christian tradition, who had gone into the desert and to come closer to God and performed amazing austerities. And they founded the first monastery in Christianity in that place. I'm trying to think exactly where it was, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. And they're performing amazing austerities and so on and so forth like that. But it's not when we look towards our tradition, of the Vaishnava tradition, everything is so scrutinizingly studied and explained. I was trying to think of some verses in that connection, just like, for example, it's explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that the doubtless and fearless way of success for all is the constant chanting of Hare Krishna. But it doesn't actually say that. It's translated to say the doubtless and fearless way of success for all is the constant chanting of Hare Krishna after the ways of the great authorities. So it's not just the chanting of Hare Krishna, it's chanting Hare Krishna after the ways of the great authorities. There is a way of chanting Hare Krishna. There's a certain way of chanting Hare Krishna. It's not willy-nilly. We hear how the Goswamis would chant a prescribed number. They would count the number of beads. So it's very precise. They scrutinizingly studied all the revealed scriptures. Scrutinizingly. So it's very precise, it's very accurate. Yeah? The whole process of devotional service. So the meditation that we're hearing about is not just some willy-nilly imagination. Yeah, God's there and God's here and I'm feeling God and I'm seeing whatever. But it's given that actual meditation should be according to the forms seen or perceived by the devotees. The Lord in the heart of Vishnu Murti. The Vishnu form of the Lord within the heart is the meditation. So, Acharyavan Purusham Veda, one who follows the Acharyas knows things as they are. So, Lord Kapila is explaining this Vishuddha-sattva process of pure meditation, accessed by Bhakti Yoga, and the process that we are meditating through is the process of Shravanam Kirtanam. The process of Bhakti Yoga, the meditation is through hearing and chanting. That's the emphasis, rather than sitting. And in different verses in this chapter, we've heard how the yogi, there's a good benefit for being able to meditate. Prabhupada says that the yogi can sit down anywhere, in any situation, and meditate on the form of the Lord. Whereas the neophyte devotee has to come to the temple to see the Archavigraha, the form of the Lord. Now you could think, oh, the yogi is better. In one sense, yes, he can see Krishna everywhere, at any time, in any circumstance. So he's learning, he's able to sit down anywhere. Devotee has to go to the temple to see the Lord. But Srila Prabhupada points out we should understand there is absolutely no difference. The different form of the Lord, the form of the holy name, the form of the deity form of the Lord, the form of the prescribed form of the Lord within the heart through meditation, carved in the mind. That form is there. And we are blessed by the Archa-Vigraha. I was meditating, thinking this morning about the blessing of the form of the Lord, that actually Krishna, we're not left to just imagine, but the deity form is there, threefold bending form, playing on his flute, his beautiful curling hair, his beautiful smiling face, and we become attracted to that form of the Lord. And we learn, and then we're encouraged that we should not simply see the form of the Lord in the form of the deity, but we should also learn to see the form of the Lord within the heart of every living entity, which is an amazing thing. And Krishna, in many verses, again, he gives this caveat, depending on where you come from. There's a condition. So Krishna says that we should always absorb ourselves in thinking of Krishna. We should meditate on Krishna. We should offer everything to Krishna. Everything's all Krishna. And then he says, but you have to also be friendly to all living beings. Then you will come to me. It comes up everywhere, actually, many, many places, where it seems to be all about Krishna. But then Krishna says, yes, that's true. You have to engage. Mat karma krin, mat paramo, mat bhakta sangavarjita. Nirvairas avabhutisha. You ever know that verse? Mat karma krin, mat paramo, mat bhakta sangavarjita. 1155. No? I don't think so. But I might get it wrong. Just pause if you can for a second. It might be the right one. But let's see if we can find it. I think it's... What chapter did I say? 1155. I think so. Or maybe I got it wrong. No. Mat karma krin, mat paramo, mat bhakta sangavarjita nirvaira savabhuteshu ya samam eti pandava. My dear Arjuna, so Krishna's speaking. He who engages in my... This is after. He's just said that you can only know me as I am, standing before you by pure devotional service. Only in this way can you enter into the mystery of my understanding. So this is... Yeah. That's the text before, 54. So in the last verse of this 11th chapter, he says, my dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life. So it's all about meditation on Krishna. It's all Krishna. And then he throws in, and who is friendly to every living being. It's like, where did that come from? It wasn't what you would expect. All of a sudden, Krishna throws it in as a requisite. And who is friendly to every living being. He certainly comes to me. So if we think, oh yes, I love Krishna, I love Krishna, I love Krishna, but I can't get on with this one, I don't like that one, I don't think this one, I think. We can't get the real deep connection to Krishna, because he says, love me, love my dog. Love me, love my dog. So we have to get past that. And again, Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj was giving some beautiful lectures I was listening to, and he was explaining, I think it's Madhurya Kadambini, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, I think. Please don't quote me on it, but that might be a place if you want to look further. But he's explaining envy, and it was so nicely explained. There's 4 Sanskrit words which I can't remember, but I'll see if I can remember some of the things that he was explaining. The first symptom of envy, and see if you got a little bit of this. He says it's very subtle. Well, not very, but a little subtle. We tend to think ourselves a little bit better than others. Just a little. It was me and this other person, and so I think I'm a little better than that. I've been around a bit longer. I know a few more slokas. I've been a brahmachari for longer. He's just I'm a bit better. Problem starts there. That's where it starts. We think we're a little better, and then we think, well, actually, I'm a lot better. I'm a lot better than that person or that person. So that's the beginning of envy. And it's very interesting, and it develops, especially if I'm better than that person, and then you might have a discord with somebody, and you think, well, the Shastra says we should all respect everyone, so I'll respect the person, but from a distance. I'll offer respect, but I don't want to see the person because we don't get on. But I'm respectful. That's the next stage up for envy. And I think he was explaining how it develops further. That person, whoever it was that I had the disturbance, they have to go. They've got to go. They should go to another temple. They've got to go somewhere else. Or I'm going to go. So the envy's become more manifest. But it's not full-blown yet. And the full-blown is ninda, blasphemy, where it just bursts out. I hate you, you are, and you say all this horrible thing and you blaspheme somebody. Or there's another part of the third one, I think, where you want something bad to happen to the other person. He was explaining some nice nuances. Krishna, why are you allowing this? Krishna, do something. This guy or this girl or whoever it may be, they should be. We wish some harm to come to the person, some difficulty. So anyway, and he was pointing out very nicely also how it's that mood of thinking we're better than someone defeats Trinada peace in Ichina. Our mood is that we're actually supposed to be seeing ourselves, considering ourselves to be very small, insignificant, lower than the straw on the street, and not wanting respect, but offering respects to everyone else. So when we think we're a little better, then it's that competitive energy. That's the material world, the competition. I'm better than the other person, and that's the whole material world's going on under that. I'm better than this one, that one's better than me. The competition's going on. So the devotional energy is of a different nature. So Lord Kapila is explaining the meditation of the yogi in the first text of this chapter. The personality, where is that? Yogi number. The personality of Godhead said, "My dear mother, O daughter of the king, now I shall explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing this system, one can become joyful and progressively advance towards the path of the absolute truth. The yoga process explained by Lord Kapila Dev in this chapter is authorized and standard, and therefore these instructions should be followed very carefully. To begin, the Lord says that by yoga practice, one can make progress towards understanding the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the previous chapter, it has been clearly stated that the desired result of yoga is not to achieve some wonderful mystic power. One should not be at all attracted by such mystic power, but should attain progressive realization on the path of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, which states in the last verse of the 6th chapter that the greatest yogi is he who constantly thinks of Krishna within himself, or he who is Krishna conscious. It is stated here that by following the system of yoga, one can become joyful. Lord Kapila, the personality of Godhead, who is the highest authority on yoga, here explains the yoga system known as Astanga Yoga, which comprises 8 different practices, namely Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. By all these stages of practice, one must realize Lord Vishnu, who is the target of all yoga. There are so-called yoga practices in which one concentrates the mind on voidness or on the impersonal, but this is not approved by the authorized yoga system, as explained by Kapila Dev. Even Patanjali explains that the target of all yoga is Vishnu. Astanga Yoga is therefore part of Vaishnava practice because its ultimate goal is realization of Vishnu. The achievement of success in yoga is not acquisition of mystic power, which is condemned in the previous chapter, but rather freedom from all material designations and situation in one's constitutional position. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. So this is what is available through the process of bhakti yoga. So Astanga yoga is there, and throughout this chapter, Srila Prabhupada is showing the parallel system. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatin antaratmana shadavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamomataha. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me is the highest of all yogis. So this is the highest yoga perfection. And there's a very beautiful verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, where Sutta Goswami is instructing the sages at Namasharanya, and he says that Anarto Pashamam Shakshad Bhakti Yoga Madhoksaje Lokasya Janato Vidvams Chakri Sattva Samhita. The material is very wonderful verse. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him. So much said in just a few words. So the material miseries of the living entity, which are actually superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this. So the mass of people don't know this, that the miseries that are actually superfluous to them, all these miseries caused by the mind and the senses and the illusions of the world, they're all superfluous to the living entity. But the mass of people don't know this, that it can be directly mitigated by the process of bhakti yoga. Directly mitigated. All that's troublesome to the heart can be completely destroyed by the linking process of connecting to the reservoir of all pleasure, of all beauty, of all fame, of all renunciation, of everything, Krishna. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in relation to the Supreme Truth. So it's a secret, Guyam, Rajavidya Rajaguyam, Pavitram Idamutamam Pratyakshavāgamam Dharmam Shusakatamaviyam. This knowledge is the king of education. It's the most secret of all secrets. So it's an open secret, it's available, but how to get it is the tricky part. And it's so rare. Brahmanda Brahmate Kona Bhagavanaji Guru Krishna Prasad Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. To get this seed, and not just, it's the seed of bhakti, the seed of bhakti. It's so rare. And again, just a little thought during the week on this subject. We have a very special ticket. There's one other verse I was trying to learn recently, is that verse, Yesam Tvantakata Papam Janam Punya Karmanam Te. How does it go? Te Tvanva Moha Nirmukta Bhajanti Mam Drita Vrata. Struggling to learn these verses, but some verses are there that we should have learned maybe 30 years ago, 40 years, but it's never too late. Don't think it's too late. Why? Because you're not old. You're supposed to be a living entity who is eternal, so it's never too late. So Krishna says again, it's the mystery, it's quite mysterious. Krishna says, those who have acted piously in past lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, and are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my devotional service with determination. Put your hand up if you acted piously in past life and you took birth in a Brahminical family, very Suchi family, and due to all the past pious activities that you performed in your last life. Yeah, no hands are going up. Because if we examine our existential situation, we were born in a very impious, meat-eating, cow-killing, etc. I won't go into all the sinful activities. So Krishna is saying those whose sinful activities are completely eradicated because they've acted piously in previous lives. So that's not us. I mean, you can argue both sides of this. There's two sides to everything. So you can argue, well, it's said also that one who chants Hare Krishna must have performed great performance of sacrifices, has travelled to all holy places, and now he's chanting Hare Krishna. So then you can add in Srila Prabhupada saying, I have created your good fortune. I have created your good fortune. So I'm going to present that side of it. We have a special ticket, and Prabhupada said, don't wait, don't think, that, oh, well, maybe next life. We are unfortunate, we're lazy, we're quarrelsome, misguided, unlucky, always disturbed, we're so fallen, we have so many disqualifications. So how could we possibly think that we could go back home, back to Godhead? So it's going to take me many lives. And we can slip. There's so many slides to go down on. You can go on the full sense gratification one, you can go on that slide. There's so many slides, so you slide into, yeah, well, maybe, a few lifetimes. Lord Chaitanya, somebody said the other day, oh, Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement's 10,000 years, so there's a window of opportunity there. So, thinking, I've got to make it in the next 10,000 years. Destination unknown. So Srila Prabhupada was encouraging, and we know from Shastra, the Lord, just like Lord Brahma, he gave the benedictions to Hiranyakashipu, and the Lord was obliged to fulfill those benedictions of his devotee that he'd given, and the Lord appeared in a way which was according to Lord Brahma's benedictions, that Hiranyakashipu wouldn't be killed inside the house or outside. He made all the arrangements so that his word would be kept. So Srila Prabhupada's word was there that if you follow strictly this process, and the process is, again, Krishna says, I preserve what they have and I carry what they lack. And we think, oh, Haribol, I don't have much. 10% maybe. So Krishna can carry the other 90. That's what he says. He'll carry what I lack and preserve my 10% and take me back home. No. No. Krishna says he will preserve for those who are Tivrena Bhakti Yogina, who are engaged in devotional service 24 hours a day, always engaged in Krishna's service through the 9 processes of devotional service. For those persons, you will still lack. You will never become, there's no such thing as complete perfection. We'll always be lacking. Krishna says, don't worry, if I see the sincerity, we may not be expert and perfect, but if the sincere endeavor is to be connected to Krishna at all times and circumstances, then Krishna will see that, and he says, I will preserve what he has and carry what you lack through this process. So the living entities don't know this, and therefore the process is being created for the living entity out of the mercy of Srila Vyasadeva. And those anarthas, unnecessary things, can be taken away. So I could talk all morning, actually, when I think about it. There's about 4 pages of stuff I was thinking I could talk on. But I feel a little embarrassed that I'm holding you all here. It's 8:45, and the day must go on, and there are other things to do. So what I'm going to do is just pause there, and ask if there's any reflections that anyone has, anything I've said or anything in the purport, anything Prabhupada's purport or verse, something that's stuck in your mind, a little something. You could just reflect it back. You don't have to add anything really, but just anything that's a little reflection on something that you could become your meditation for the day or for the next 5 minutes. We could deepen the conversation a little bit.
The 4 stages of being for religion.
Mm.
Now, begins off just that small thought that, oh yeah, I can do it better than someone else.
It's there, isn't it? It's so strong. So yeah, it's something to meditate. I mean, the Maharaj, he actually gave a series of, I think it was 3 lectures over 6 hours, over 3 lectures on the whole subject matter. And he has a wonderful ability, I've found. He tends to, how would you say, he could use, yeah, he can, what would you say, I'm going to say this without, say it in a polite way. I'll say it the way it was in my brain. It was, he can labor the point a little bit. So it seems like he's, making the point, then he makes the point, and he makes the same point quite a lot, the same thing. But actually I was appreciating it because what happened was it sticks. So he says it, and he re-says it, and he says it again, he says it this way and that way, and so it's a very nice kind of process of making a point so that you get it. Yeah, so he explained it very, very nicely. Yeah. So to give up that competitive idea and see, actually, I'm not really better. Anything I have, maybe Krishna's giving some ability to function in a certain way, but actually isn't it? We spent 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. I mean, I was thinking that the other day. The tip of a hair, you can't measure it. There's no measurement virtually. It's a tip, and it's divided into 10,000 parts. That's the little jiva. Yeah, we expand out through a body and so on. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's something. I'm going to continue that meditation. See if I can milk it more. Get out of the... Yes?
I just had a question.
Yes.
When we hear Prabhupada say we must or we should, how does one interpret that?
I'm sorry, I missed the last... Prabhupada says we must or we should.
We must or we should do something.
Yes.
How do we interpret that as a way of doing service?
I don't know if it needs interpretation.
Like how we...
I'm just...
It sounds like very forceful. When someone says you must or you should.
Yes.
Nervous, so how does everybody interpret that? Will they get something done?
I'll give the same answer. Say more, please. Give me more so that we can see what's happening there and see what we can do. So what do you mean? Give me an example, or say some more about what you're saying, what you're asking.
Say something in the purport that you should do this.
For example.
I'm not sure what it was, but I just heard you should or must.
So there's, again, I'm going to third time again. When Prabhupada says we should or we must, then it's pretty clear. There's no need for... Prabhupada says you need interpretation when... And it's a discussion. I'm not trying to be absolute here, if you get what I mean. I'm just coming back with an answer. So it's not an absolute statement. It's just... But that's how it's landing. Srila Prabhupada said interpretation is required when it's not clear. So if Srila Prabhupada said we should do something, or we must do something, then you don't need to interpret it. He says you should do it, and you must do it. Now the next part of the question comes up. What if you can't do it? Is that what you mean? What if you can't do it? I hear what you're saying. This is the 4th time. Now the 5th time I'm going to ask you to say more. Give me an example. Otherwise, you must have something in your head you're thinking of that gives a basis to the question. Something must be there before you ask a question. There must be a foundation to the question. So search deep and see if there's something there. For example, something why you're asking that question. I'm not having a go at you, I'm just trying to help us understand. I'm sorry?
I'm trying to understand it empathically. What you must or you should do is, but how do we interpret it empathically? Is it empathically?
anybody else like to answer the question? I can't quite answer the question, I think. Give me an example. Come on. What is it that makes you ask the question? There must be something. If you can't get that, it means there's a blockage somewhere between your thinking and your speaking. Yes? I'm sorry, Prabhu, it's very hard, the acoustics. Yes. Okay, it does a bit. Gosh, yeah. I've still got to form the question. Before I can find an answer, I've got to come up with the actual question. Interesting. So what you're saying then, is it that if Srila Prabhupada or Shastra says we have to do something and we feel that it's forced upon us because we can't, you know what I mean? There's a whole lot more to that question. It's too ethereal. And I'm asking for an example. And I'm trying to think, please you think and come up with something for example so that we can pin the question to something tangible. Otherwise it becomes mental. It's a mental. So he doesn't get up early in the morning. Okay, so thank you. So it's said you must get up early in the morning. Yes? Yeah. And somebody's saying, I can't get up early in the morning. So how to deal with that? You could be in a program and saying you must get up at a certain time, but some person can't get up because they may need more sleep or something. Yes. Yeah. Okay, good. So at least we get something to talk about then. So then how to apply ourselves to specific instructions that are given. That requires common sense. It requires association to understand how to deal with that. Say, for example, so it's not forced. It's not a forced thing, devotional service. So we're told we want to get a certain result. So again, I'm stuck with the question. I'm terrible, man. I'm stuck back at the question. I know there's a question deeper, but I can't get it to come out. So if we're talking about our inability to follow the highest standards, but that's not the process of devotional service is explained throughout Prabhupada's books. It's not a forced process. It's not a one stamp fits all. It's a process where we are shown the highest levels of devotion, but we cannot imitate those highest levels. Like the Goswamis, for example, and you know this all. The Goswamis were taking a little buttermilk every day or two. They were living so austerely, they're living under a tree, etc. But we can't imitate that. We can't. Yeah. So we must control our eating. Yes? So to make progress, we have to control our eating. That's a must. So the first thing you'd have to do to make progress is stop killing cows and eating them. That would be a control. So that's one level. And then there's another level, and there's another level, and there's another level, only taking Krishna Prashadam. So that's, so it's a whole, again, it's the whole process of devotional service, how to become Krishna conscious, how to follow the instructions of Shastra, things that we should do and must do to make progress, and to look at our inabilities and our limitations and continue the process so that we can gradually come to. And my answer most likely doesn't satisfy very deeply, but the question didn't quite get me, so. Any other reflections? Oh, yes, please. Yes.
Someone who can see Krishna in the heart of all living entities, including the devotees, does that mean that person will get along with all devotees?
You'd hope so. But maybe not. Yeah. Would you get along? Such a person would be very, very Krishna conscious, to actually be that Krishna conscious, to be able to see in that way. Vijavanaya sampani brahmani gavihastini surichai bhav svapakicha pandita samadarshina, one who sees with equal vision all the different manifestations. And how would he get along? Generally, I would say so. But there will always be, wherever there are two people, there will be a difference of opinion. Why? Because they're two sentient living entities. So there will always be difference, because we are simultaneously one as living entities and different by constitution. So there's always that tendency. So there may be. Let's say, we could at least say there'd be a lot more harmony if we were all seeing in that way that you described. It'd be definitely, I would suggest, more harmony than without having that vision. Yeah? Even in the spiritual world, there are different camps. It's quite interesting. We were talking about that last week. And it's not that when we go back home, back to Godhead, there's just Krishna in a bubble and you. And it's just you and Krishna. But actually there's zillions of unlimited living entities all serving Krishna in different ways, different tastes, different varieties. And they're all there. So we... but it's said that before we go back home, back to Godhead, our first step would be to take birth in the arena where Krishna is performing his pastimes with his eternal associates. So we will manifest there. And you'll be trained. The final, it's like, I would suggest, something like finishing school. They used to have something called a finishing school. I was usually applied, I think, for young girls. But they would go to what they called finishing school. And it's the finer etiquettes, the finer things in life, to be trained in those things. So, it is explained that is a pathway where the devotee will take his birth and be able to engage in serving the servants of the servants of the servants, to be trained up in the finer nuances of devotion to this divine couple. So we'll get all the rough edges just polished off by that good association. Any comments, Madam Monk? Wow, that was pretty auspicious, huh?
We never know what's going on with any other living entity. We have to just focus on ourselves. It's like you said, Hunter says, stand in the road with ourselves. Just focus on yourself. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing, coming and going and all this sort of stuff. Work on yourself internally, because we know how much work we've all got to do internally ourselves. So just try and do that to the best you can. And by doing that, by doing the best you can, you're encouraging those around you.
Mm-hmm. It's not a bad focus. Okay, we're going to finish at that point, and I do thank everyone for being here. Hare Krishna, thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.